Ukraine is one of the poorest European countries, and this fact puzzles many and leaves them scratching their heads. This is because the country has so much potential to be higher than the economic level in which they are. Ukraine has one of the best and richest soils in Europe, where vast fields of golden wheat thrive. So vast that they are nicknamed the breadbasket of Europe. They have an incredible abundance of mineral resources in high concentrations, all located within close proximity to each other. Ukraine boasts a very rich cultural history, amazing landscapes, and beautiful views, and the country sits in a very strategic location just between Europe and Asia. Ukraine seems to have all it takes to be an economically powerful country. However, it remains one of the poorest countries in the continent. What could have possibly gone wrong, you ask? In this video, we will be exploring the possibilities as to why this country that has such great potential remains poor. Before we continue, kindly leave a like or subscribe to our channel as we are trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Thank you. The economy of Ukraine has gone through many twists and turns, but like all great stories, let's start right at the beginning. You see, Ukraine wasn't always poor. Let us look at the 10th century when Kievan Rus, now modern-day Ukraine, was a powerful empire that controlled much of the trade routes between Europe and Asia. The powerful state was a bustling center for trade and culture, known for its abundant supply of furs, honey, beeswax, and slaves. They also produced and exported expensive jewelry and religious wares. Due to its fertile soil and perfect conditions for growing crops, Ukraine at the time could produce enough food to feed millions of people. They predominantly grew wheat and corn. Their economy was thriving, and this era was known as the Golden Age of Kiev. This age came to an end in the 13th century, after an attack by the Mongol Empire finally brought the great city to its knees. Following this, more powerful neighboring nations like Poland and even the Ottoman Empire fought over the Ukrainian territories, and by the end of the 18th century, most of Ukraine had fallen under the domination of the Russian Empire. The other smaller portions were ruled by Lithuania and Poland. The economy of Ukraine started to decline under Russian rule as the people were forced to work on their own land to enrich their masters while they were left poor and oppressed with little to no freedom. That wouldn't do much for any country now, would it? After the Russian Empire collapsed in the 20th century, Ukraine experienced a brief moment of independence. But before they could gather themselves back up from the oppressive effects of the Russian Empire, they were absorbed into the Soviet Union. Ukraine played a very important role in the Soviet Union's economy as it produced a significant portion of the USSR's food. This made the country an agricultural powerhouse. Major cities in Ukraine, such as Kyiv, produced industrial goods from steel to even spacecraft. They had a thriving industrial sector. But then, in the early 1930s, the Soviet government under Joseph Stalin seized most of the grains produced by Ukrainian farmers, leaving them with little or nothing to eat. This caused a man-made famine to sweep across the country, and millions of people died from starvation. This dark period is known as Holodomor. To make the matter even worse, during the Second World War in 1939, Ukraine was a major battleground. This resulted in the loss of millions of lives and the destruction of cities and villages. True dark times they were. While all of these were going on, and even after the war, Ukraine still remained under Soviet rule, and much of its resources and economy were controlled by the Union. The independence of Ukraine came in 1991 when the Soviet Union collapsed. The country was filled with hope and optimism for the future, with expectations to capitalize once more on its strategic location and abundant resources to become a prosperous nation. However, they were in for a myriad of challenges. For a country that had gone through war, been under oppression for way too long, and had been overly dependent on the Soviet Union government, independence was quite overwhelming, and the transition from a centrally planned economy to a market economy was nothing short of chaotic. The country made several economic missteps that may contribute to why the economy of the country is at the level that it is now. First, as a result of the nation being unfamiliar with the new economic system where commercial decisions were now in the hands of businesses and individuals, the country couldn't cope and factories closed down, leading to a massive loss of jobs, and the economy suffered. Also, the country failed to diversify its economy, and it relied too heavily on the steel industry and agricultural sector, which was already failing due to the loss of the Soviet government subsidies. Another major reason why Ukraine's economy struggled was because of corruption and mismanagement of resources. Following the rankings of Transparency International, Ukraine ranked 104th among the 180 countries in the Corruption Index. The people in power were more concerned with filling up their own pockets and neglecting to do the right thing to make the economy better. Instead, they stole from the people, used their positions for their own personal gains, and left the people struggling. Furthermore, the country's leaders sold off state-owned enterprises to just anyone for peanuts, and the natural resources the country was abundant in were exploited for their personal profit. It's worth mentioning that Ukraine inherited many poorly managed and debt-ridden state enterprises after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Today, it owns some 3,100 companies, with less than half actually operating and only 15% generating profits. These acts gave way to political instability in the country as the people, demanding for better governance, began to protest and revolt. The uncertain conditions of the country scared off potential investors and stalled the economy. These protests continued as the people saw little or no changes and were further enraged. In 2014, there was a massive protest known as the Euromaidan, where the people demanded closer ties with Europe and wanted an end to corruption. This protest led to the expulsion of the then president, Viktor Yanukovych, and sparked conflict with Russia. Russia, in retaliation, then seized Crimea, a part of Ukraine, and started supporting separatist movements. This caused a clash between the Ukrainian government and the Russian-backed separatists, and war ensued. A full-blown war was the last thing an already declining economy needed. Businesses were shut down, investments dried up as the environment was deemed unsafe for trade and investments. A further escalation of this war happened in February 2022 when Russia invaded Ukraine. As a result of this, about 8 million Ukrainians have been internally displaced, and more than 8.2 million had fled the country by April 2023, creating Europe's largest refugee crisis since World War II. The government is now forced to neglect other sectors of the economy, such as education and infrastructure, and instead focus on defending their country. This definitely sucks up a lot of money that they do not even have. There have been aid commitments from much bigger economies and countries like the United States, United Kingdom, Germany, and so on. The United States' total aid commitment to Ukraine is valued at about $75 billion. Ukraine is a prime example of how a country, regardless of how much potential it has, could be set back by political instability, corruption, and bad economic decisions. The Ukrainians, however, are a very resilient people, and they are already making steps towards squashing corruption and pushing for political reforms. When you look on the bright side, the war with Russia also had a sort of positive side to it as the country came into the public spotlight and moved other nations to assist them in stabilizing their economy. They have also signed a trade strengthening agreement with the European Union, which can help small businesses sell products to more countries. This can create job opportunities for residents and encourage more startups. Even with a very difficult past, the people of Ukraine have shown determination and strength, and this is a beacon of hope for the future and a telltale sign that their story is far from over. With hard work and dedication, one of the poorest countries in Europe can once more emerge as the prosperous nation that they once were. The twists and turns in the story of Ukraine have been an interesting one, and we hope you found it fascinating. Kindly leave a like on this video and subscribe to our channel for more educational videos like this. Thanks for watching.